There's something profoundly magnetic about maturity, and it's not something that can be faked. You see, when a man has lived through seasons of hardship, triumph, failure, and growth, that history carves itself into his very presence. Women sense it immediately, even if they can't articulate it. It's not the lines on his face or the gray in his hair that speak the loudest, though those may be symbols of the journey. It's the way he stands, the way he carries himself, and the quiet confidence that radiates from someone who has already fought the battles of youth and survived. Maturity is attractive because it represents something steady in a world that is constantly chaotic. A younger man may dazzle with excitement, with energy, with spontaneity, but that energy often lacks direction. Women are not blind to that. They notice when a man acts out of impulse instead of wisdom, when his decisions are based on validation rather than vision. An older, confident man, however, doesn't need to prove himself in that way. His validation doesn't come from external approval. He's been through enough to know that the crowd is fickle and that chasing it is a losing game, and so his energy is more grounded, his gaze more intentional, and his words more deliberate. This steadiness creates a magnetic pull because women instinctively feel safer around it. It's an ancient, even biological reality. For generations, survival was tied to security, to protection, to the presence of someone who could withstand storms and guide others through uncertainty. That deep wiring is still there. When a woman encounters a man who exudes maturity, she isn't just noticing the surface. She is responding to an undercurrent that tells her, here is someone who has seen life, who can carry burdens without crumbling, who can be a rock when the waves crash. This doesn't mean perfection, nor does it mean rigidity. In fact, the most attractive form of maturity is flexible, adaptive, but unwavering at its core. And here's the thing, maturity is not merely about age, it's about integration. Some men grow older without ever growing wiser. But the man who has reflected, who has learned from his mistakes, who has built resilience instead of resentment, becomes different. Women notice that difference. It's in the way he listens without rushing to speak. It's in the patience he demonstrates in moments of tension. It's in the calm certainty he brings into a room, the kind that says, I know who I am, and I'm not easily shaken. That presence is a gift, not just to women, but to anyone in his orbit. There's also a humility to real maturity. A younger man might feel the need to dominate, to control, to prove superiority. But a man who has lived long enough recognizes that life humbles everyone eventually. This humility doesn't weaken him, it strengthens him. It makes him approachable, relatable, deeply human. And paradoxically, that humility combined with confidence creates an irresistible paradox. Strength without arrogance, authority without tyranny, power without cruelty. Women don't forget that combination when they encounter it. So when people ask why women are drawn to older, confident men, the answer is layered, but at its heart it is simple. Maturity is rare, and rarity is always valuable. In a world that often celebrates flash over substance, noise over depth, and appearance over character, maturity stands out like a lighthouse in the fog. It calls to something deep within, something timeless, something that recognizes true value when it is felt. And here's the final truth. The magnetic pull of maturity doesn't just draw others in, it dignifies the man himself. Because when you embody that steadiness, when you carry yourself with the quiet weight of experience, you're not only more attractive to others, you become someone worthy of attracting. And that is the kind of power no one can take away. Confidence is one of those qualities that doesn't need to be announced. In fact, the moment you try to shout about it, you've already betrayed that you don't truly possess it. Real confidence is silent. It lives in the way a man moves through the world, in the way he speaks without rushing, in the way he holds eye contact without flinching, in the way he carries himself as if he belongs wherever he is. Women notice this. They don't have to be told. They pick up on it instantly because confidence isn't a performance, it's an atmosphere, and when a man has it, everyone in the room feels it. Think about it. When a man is deeply insecure, it leaks through everything. He interrupts. He tries too hard to impress. He seeks validation like a thirsty man chasing water. And the more he pushes, the more women sense the hollowness underneath. They may not consciously analyze every gesture or word, but subconsciously they pick up the signals. On the other hand, when a man is at peace with himself, when he knows who he is and doesn't feel the need to prove it every second, that energy is unmistakable. It's calm, it's grounded, and it's magnetic. Women lean toward it almost without realizing why. Confidence as a silent language is powerful because it transcends words. You can say all the right things, memorize lines, polish your image, but if beneath it all you're uncertain, people feel it. A woman especially feels it. She's attuned to emotional cues, to the subtle undercurrents of behavior. And so, the quiet assurance of a man who doesn't need external applause speaks louder than any carefully crafted speech ever could. It's not about what he says, it's about what he embodies. This doesn't mean arrogance. Arrogance is loud. It announces itself with bravado, with posturing, with the need to dominate a room. But arrogance is actually insecurity in disguise. It shouts to cover its own fragility. Real confidence doesn't do that. It doesn't need to. Instead, it allows space. It listens. It acknowledges others. It carries strength without having to crush anything in its path. That is why women are drawn to it, because it feels safe. It feels reliable. It feels like a presence that can be trusted. And here's something deeper. Women are not simply attracted to the confidence itself, but to what it represents. Confidence signals that a man has faced life and survived. It tells a story that he has endured challenges, that he has built competence, that he has come to terms with who he is. Every gesture, every pause, every silence communicates that history. It whispers, I am here, I am steady, you can lean on this. That's why it's irresistible, because at the core of attraction is not just charm or appearance, but trust. And trust is born from that unshakable presence. You'll notice, too, that true confidence often looks like restraint. The man who doesn't feel the need to respond to every slight. The man who can walk away from petty conflict because he knows his worth isn't on the line. The man who can hold silence in a conversation without panicking because he isn't desperate to fill the space. That level of composure is profoundly rare, and that's why it draws others in. It's not a trick, it's not a tactic. It's who he has become through discipline, through growth, through the long process of earning self-respect. When a woman encounters that kind of man, she feels it before she even thinks it. It bypasses her conscious analysis and lands directly in her intuition. And in that moment, she knows she's in the presence of someone different, someone rare. Because confidence is not a costume you put on in the morning. It's the silent language of a man who has made peace with himself. And that silent language, when spoken truthfully, is louder than any words could ever be. There's a reason why emotional security outshines flashiness every single time. You can have the sharpest suit, the newest car, the most carefully curated image, and still fail to capture what truly matters. Because what women are drawn to at the deepest level isn't the surface sparkle, it's the sense of safety, consistency, and calm that a man carries within himself. Emotional security is the invisible foundation that allows trust to grow, and without it, no amount of glamour or excitement can hold a relationship together for long. Flashiness is often a distraction. It's loud, it's bright, and it shouts for attention. But women, especially as they mature in their own self-awareness, quickly see through it. They recognize when a man is relying on material status or temporary highs to mask inner instability, and instability is exhausting. A man who is ruled by impulses, who reacts to every moment of pressure with anger, defensiveness, or panic, can't offer the kind of presence that allows a woman to relax and open herself fully. On the other hand, emotional security whispers rather than shouts. It shows itself in patience, in steadiness, in the ability to remain composed when life inevitably throws its chaos at you. That's what creates trust. A woman doesn't want to feel like she's stepping into a storm every time she enters a room with a man. She doesn't want to wonder which version of him she's going to get today. She wants to know that his character is consistent, that even when he's under stress, even when things go wrong, there is a solidness there that she can lean on. Emotional security is the quiet confidence that no matter what's happening outside, the ground underneath her won't collapse. That matters more than any momentary thrill because it touches something ancient in human nature. The instinct to seek stability in a world that is unpredictable. When a man is emotionally secure, he doesn't need to dominate the room. He doesn't need to drown others out with his words or inflate himself with displays of power. His power is internal. It comes from discipline, from resilience, from knowing who he is regardless of what others think. And that kind of inner calm is contagious. It soothes those around him. It gives permission for vulnerability, for honesty, for authenticity. Women feel safe in that atmosphere because they know they won't be judged for showing their emotions, nor will they be punished for their imperfections. And this is where the contrast becomes so clear. Flashiness might win attention for a moment, but it cannot sustain respect. Emotional security, however, builds respect day by day, conversation by conversation, action by action. Over time, it creates a bond that runs deeper than appearances. It creates a connection that doesn't fade when the lights dim or when the distractions fall away. That's why women remember men who embody this quality, because in a world filled with noise, they found someone whose silence carried strength. It's also worth noting that emotional security isn't weakness. It's not passivity or indifference. It's strength under control. It's the ability to respond rather than react, to choose composure over chaos, to carry responsibility without resentment. That's what makes it so powerful. It demonstrates mastery not only of circumstances, but of the self. And self-mastery is what inspires trust more than anything else. So when the question arises what lasts longer, the thrill of flash or the assurance of security, the answer is obvious. One fades when the spotlight turns off. The other becomes a steady fire that warms the room long after the noise is gone. And when a woman experiences that kind of presence, she doesn't forget it because it tells her something simple yet profound. Here is a man she can count on when everything else feels uncertain. Purpose and direction are like a compass in the soul of a man, and women can sense when that compass is missing. A man without direction often drifts. He moves from one distraction to the next, constantly restless, constantly looking for the next thing to fill the void. And while that might look exciting on the surface, it eventually feels empty, because without purpose, there's no stability, no consistency, no deeper meaning. Women recognize this, sometimes even faster than men do themselves. They know when a man is wandering without aim, and they know the difference when they encounter someone whose life is being pulled forward by something greater than himself. There is an undeniable allure to a man who knows where he is going. He may not have every detail figured out, he may not even have reached the destination yet, but he has a vision, a trajectory. His life has a sense of forward momentum, and women are drawn to that because it speaks to something essential, the desire to be part of a story bigger than the present moment. When a man is aligned with a purpose, His actions carry weight, his decisions have meaning, and his presence feels different. It isn't random, it's deliberate. That deliberateness is magnetic. Purpose brings clarity. A man who knows his direction doesn't get lost in trivialities. He doesn't waste his energy on shallow pursuits, because he has something higher to aim for. That kind of clarity is rare in a world full of distraction, and it commands respect. Women notice when a man's eyes are set on something beyond immediate gratification. They feel the difference between a man who is chasing pleasure and a man who is building something lasting. And the truth is, the latter is far more attractive, not just because of what it produces, but because of what it reveals about his character. Direction also brings strength in adversity. A man without purpose is easily broken by setbacks. He sees obstacles as personal attacks and struggles to recover. But a man with purpose absorbs difficulty differently. He sees it as part of the journey, a test of his resolve, a refining process. That resilience becomes part of his presence, and women can sense it. They feel safer around someone who doesn't crumble under pressure, someone who can weather storms without losing his footing. Purpose transforms pain into growth, and that growth is deeply compelling to those who witness it. Another important point is that purpose protects a man from the emptiness of ego. When life revolves around proving oneself or seeking validation, every encounter becomes a competition, every slight a wound. But when a man is rooted in purpose, he isn't easily swayed by approval or criticism. He is anchored in something beyond himself. That kind of self-possession is rare, and it draws women in because it signals maturity, depth, and authenticity. It tells them, here is a man who isn't playing games, here is someone who knows what he values and where he's headed. What's fascinating is that women are not necessarily looking for perfection in this regard. They don't expect a man to have every detail mapped out. What matters is that he is moving with intention. Even a man still building his vision, still walking the early steps of his journey, can inspire attraction if he demonstrates that his life is moving toward something meaningful. Because direction is more about the trajectory than the destination. So when you strip it all down, what creates allure isn't wealth or status or charm alone. It's the unmistakable energy of a man who knows his why and is living it out day by day. That sense of purpose radiates through his actions, through his presence, through the very way he exists in the world. And when a woman encounters it, she recognizes that she is not just looking at a man, she is looking at a mission. And that is why purpose and direction are irresistible, because they reveal not just who a man is, but who he is becoming, and invite others to walk alongside a vision that will outlast fleeting. Attraction, authenticity is rare, and when it shows up in the form of a man who doesn't play games, it carries a power that women immediately recognize. Too often, relationships are clouded by manipulation, by ego-driven tactics, by shallow attempts to impress or control. But all of that stems from insecurity. A man who has to rely on games is signaling that he doesn't believe who he truly is will be enough. And when that insecurity drives his actions, it eventually becomes exhausting for everyone involved. What stands out instead, what makes a lasting impression, is authentic masculinity, the kind that is steady, honest, and unashamed of being direct. Women don't forget men who embody this quality because it's such a contrast to what they often experience. Many men, especially when they're younger, fall into the trap of trying to outwit, outshine, or outmaneuver others to prove their worth. But the older, confident man doesn't need to do that. He's not competing for attention in that way. He understands that real strength isn't about constant performance. It's about presence. And when he chooses to simply be himself, without masks or pretenses, that simplicity itself becomes striking. Authentic masculinity isn't about perfection, nor is it about dominance for its own sake. It's about alignment, living in such a way that your values, your actions, and your words match. It's about saying what you mean and following through on it. It's about treating others with respect, not because you're trying to get something in return, but because respect is who you are. That kind of consistency builds trust, and trust is one of the most magnetic forces in any relationship. There's also a deep sense of freedom in authenticity. A man who doesn't play games isn't enslaved to outcomes. He doesn't obsess over how every move will be perceived, because he isn't crafting an image. He's living out his truth. And that freedom is contagious. Women sense it, and it gives them permission to relax, to lower their guard, to be more open. When someone is genuine, it creates space for others to be genuine too. That is how real intimacy is built, not through clever tactics, but through honesty that invites honesty in return. Authentic masculinity also carries with it a quiet courage, because it's not always easy to be straightforward. It's not always easy to be yourself when the world tells you to conform, to put on a show, to manipulate to get ahead. But the man who chooses authenticity over deception is making a powerful statement. He values truth more than temporary gain. And that commitment to truth, even when it costs something, is what separates him from the crowd. Women admire that not because it's flashy, but because it's real. When you think about it, games may win attention for a moment, but they can never win loyalty. Deception can spark temporary interest, but it will always collapse under the weight of reality. Authenticity, on the other hand, deepens over time. The longer you know someone who is genuine, the more respect you have for them. Their consistency reinforces itself, and it creates a kind of stability that can't be faked. And stability, paired with strength, is exactly what women find so compelling. So, what does authentic masculinity look like in practice? It's the man who speaks directly rather than hinting or manipulating. It's the man who listens without distraction, who doesn't need to pretend to be something he's not, who admits mistakes and learns from them. It's the man whose handshake, whose word, whose character can be relied on. These aren't grand gestures, they're daily choices that accumulate into a presence that commands respect without demanding it. And here's the paradox. The man who stops playing games ends up being the one who truly wins, not because he tricked anyone into liking him, but because he built something real. And in a world full of pretense, nothing is more powerful, more memorable, or more magnetic than the raw strength of authenticity. There's a common misconception that stability and excitement are opposites, that you can either be the dependable man or the adventurous one, but never both. And yet the truth is that the most compelling men, the ones women remember and gravitate toward, embody a balance between the two. Stability alone can feel predictable, even dull if it turns into complacency. Excitement alone, on the other hand, can feel thrilling at first, but soon reveals itself as chaos, unreliable, ungrounded, exhausting. But when a man can offer stability without losing his spark, when he can be both the steady anchor and the source of vitality, that's when he becomes truly magnetic. Women are drawn to stability because it represents safety. It means they don't have to constantly guess who you're going to be from one day to the next. It means that when life gets difficult, you'll still be there, solid, consistent, unwavering. But at the same time, women don't want a life that feels mechanical, lifeless, or trapped in routine. They want to feel alive, to be surprised, to be reminded that the world is still full of possibility. And that's where excitement comes in, not the shallow excitement of recklessness, but the deeper excitement of passion, curiosity, and adventure. When a man matures, and especially when he gains confidence through years of experience, he begins to master this balance. He understands that stability isn't about being rigid, it's about being dependable. He understands that excitement isn't about being reckless. It's about bringing energy, playfulness, and vitality into life. This balance creates a paradox that is irresistible. The comfort of knowing you're safe, paired with the thrill of never quite knowing what might happen next. Think about it. A woman feels reassured when she knows her partner won't crumble under pressure, when she knows he'll keep his word, when she knows he can be relied on. That's stability, but her eyes light up when that same man suddenly surprises her with an adventure, when he shares a new idea, when he introduces passion and spontaneity into their shared life. That's excitement. Most men lean too heavily on one side, either too predictable or too unpredictable. The rare man who embodies both creates a dynamic that women never forget. The secret here is that excitement means very little if it's not built on a foundation of stability. If you're unpredictable in your moods, your commitments, or your integrity, then what you call excitement is really just instability, and instability erodes trust. But when you're grounded, when you've proven that your character is consistent, then excitement becomes a gift rather than a threat. It becomes something that adds flavor and richness to life without shaking its core. It's worth recognizing, too, that excitement doesn't have to mean extravagance. It doesn't always mean grand gestures or wild adventures. Sometimes it's as simple as curiosity, a willingness to learn, to explore, to create. A man who is deeply engaged with life, who continues to grow, who brings energy and passion to the table, is exciting to be around. And when that passion is anchored in stability, it becomes sustainable. It doesn't burn out, it deepens. So what women feel when they encounter this combination is both reassurance and inspiration. They feel safe enough to be vulnerable, but alive enough to stay intrigued. They know they can trust you, but they also know that with you, life will never become stagnant. That's the balance that draws them in, keeps them invested, and makes them unwilling to walk away. Because, at the end of the day, stability without excitement is lifeless, and excitement without stability is chaos. But when a man embodies both, when he is the rock that steadies and the fire that ignites, he becomes unforgettable. And that, more than anything else, is what women are truly drawn to. When we look closely at the hidden psychology of women around older, confident men, a clear pattern begins to emerge. It isn't about superficial qualities, flashy displays, or empty performances. It's about the deeper forces that women instinctively recognize: maturity that provides grounding, confidence that speaks without words, emotional security that builds trust, purpose that inspires, authenticity that reassures, and the rare balance of stability and excitement that keeps life alive. These are not tricks, they are not tactics. They are the fruits of growth, of discipline, of choosing to become more than your impulses. What truly captivates women is not age itself, but the man you've become through the years you've lived. Age can add wrinkles, but confidence, wisdom, and direction add presence. And presence is unforgettable. When you embody these qualities, you don't just attract women. You attract respect, admiration, and the kind of connection that runs deeper than attraction alone. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and pretense, the man who is grounded, purposeful, and authentic stands apart. And when women encounter that, they don't simply notice it. They feel it, they remember it, and it leaves an impact that lasts far beyond the moment. Because the truth is simple. It isn't youth that makes a man magnetic. It's who he chooses to become. And when you choose to embody maturity, confidence, purpose, authenticity, and strength, you don't chase attention. You command it.